It is day 2 of the Easter holidays, day 12 of our stay at home, and I yesterday started reading the Twits. Now we are on to chapter 4, and if you haven't seen yesterday's video, I would suggest going back and watching that first. Otherwise you're joining at a bit of a crucial moment of the story and you're not going to understand where we've come from or where we're going. So let's do a quick little recap of what we've learnt so far. We have met Mr Twit. We've only met Mr Twit, and we have learnt all about his dirty beard that he catches food in, basically. He never washes it. He's not like us normal people who wash our hair and things. He does not wash his beard. He never has, and I don't think he ever will, to be honest with you. He's very, very dirty, and I will show you a picture. He's just a very hairy-faced man. He has hair everywhere, apart from on his eyes, his nostrils, and his lips. We also found out that he's a very horrible man. We don't know why. I imagine we're going to find out throughout the story. But we haven't met Mrs Twit yet, and we're about to now. So, let's find out what she's like. Chapter 4, Mrs Twit. Mrs Twit was no better than her husband. She did not, of course, have a hairy face. It was a pity she didn't, because that, at any rate, would have hidden some of her fearful ugliness. Take a look at her. Have you ever seen a woman with an uglier face than that? I doubt it. But the funny thing is that Mrs Twit wasn't born ugly. She'd had quite a nice face when she was young. The ugliness had grown upon her year by year as she got older. Why would that happen? I'll tell you why. If a person has ugly thoughts, it begins to show on the face. And when that person has ugly thoughts, every day, every week, every year, the face gets uglier and uglier, until it gets so ugly you can hardly bear to look at it. A person who has good thoughts cannot ever be ugly. You can have a wonky nose and a crooked mouth and a double chin and sticky out teeth, but if you had good thoughts, they will shine out of your face like sunbeams and you will always look lovely. Nothing shone out of Mrs Twit's face. In her right hand, she carried a walking stick. She used to tell people that this was because she had warts growing on the sole of her left foot and walking was painful. But the real reason she carried a stick was so that she could hit things with it, things like dogs and cats and small children. And then there was the glass eye. Mrs Twit had a glass eye that was always looking the other way. Chapter 5, the glass eye. You can play a lot of tricks with a glass eye because you can take it out and pop it back in again anytime you like. You can bet your life Mrs Twit knew all the tricks. One morning, she took out her glass eye and dropped it into Mr Twit's mug of beer when he wasn't looking. Mr Twit sat there drinking the beer slowly. The froth made a white ring on the hairs around his mouth. He wiped the white froth onto his sleeve and wiped his sleeve on his trousers. You're plotting something, Mrs Twit said, keeping her back turned so he wouldn't see that she had taken out her glass eye. Whenever you go all quiet like that, I know very well you're plotting something. Mrs Twit was right. Mr Twit was plotting away like mad. He was trying to think up a really nasty trick he could play on his wife that day. You'd better be careful, Mrs Twit said, because when I see you starting to plot, I watch you like a wombat. Oh, do shut up, you old hag, Mr Twit said. He went on drinking his beer, and his evil mind kept working away on the latest horrible trick he was going to play on the old woman. Suddenly, as Mr Twit tipped the last drop of beer down his throat, he caught sight of Mrs Twit's awful glass eye staring up at him from the bottom of the mug. It made him jump. I told you I was watching you, cackled Mrs Twit. I've got eyes everywhere, so you'd better be careful. Chapter 6, the frog. To pay her back for the glass eye in his beer, Mr Twit decided he would put a frog in Mrs Twit's bed. He caught a big one down by the pond and carried it back secretly in a box. That night, when Mrs Twit was in the bathroom getting ready for bed, Mr Twit slipped the frog between her sheets. Then he got into his own bed and waited for the fun to begin. Mrs Twit came back and climbed into her bed and put out the light. She lay there in the dark, scratching her tummy. Her tummy was itching. Dirty old hags like her always have itchy tummies. Then all at once she felt something cold and slimy crawling all over her feet. She screamed. "What's the matter with you?" Mr Twit said. "Help!" screamed Mrs Twit, bouncing about. "There's something in my bed." "I'll bet it's that giant skillywiggler I saw on the floor just now," Mr Twit said. "That what?" screamed Mrs Twit. "I tried to kill it, but he got away," Mr Twit said. "It's got teeth like screwdrivers." "Help!" screamed Mrs Twit. "Save me! It's all over my feet!" "It'll bite off your toes," said Mr Twit. Mrs Twit fainted. Mr Twit got out of bed and fetched a jug of cold water. He poured the water over Mrs Twit's head to revive her. The frog crawled up from under the sheets to get near the water. It started jumping about on the pillow. Frogs love water. This one was having a good time. When Mrs Twit came to, the frog had just jumped onto her face. This is not a nice thing to happen to anyone in bed at night. She screamed again. "By golly, it is a giant skillywiggler," Mr Twit said. "It'll bite off your nose." Mrs Twit leapt out of bed and flew downstairs and spent the night on the sofa. The frog went to sleep on her pillow. And we've got to stop there. As quick as a flash, it's over. The chapters are so short in the Twits that I just wanted to keep reading, but I can't. I have to spread it out carefully so that we've got enough story to read for the rest of the holiday. So, we still haven't really investigated why Mr Twit is so horrible. I mean, it is quite nasty to put a frog in your wife's bed, but, you know, pranks and tricks happen, I suppose. I suppose we'll still have to wait to find out about that one. Mrs Twit and Mr Twit seem to be a perfect match because they're both as gross as each other. But I'm interested to find out more. I don't know about you. So, I shall see you tomorrow for chapters 7, 8 and 9. And maybe we'll find out a bit more about these two people. And I think, like I said yesterday, it's going to continue to get juicy because I know something big happens. So, I hope you're all okay and taking care. I miss you all very much. And I shall see you tomorrow for more of the Twits.